Sit back, everyone, grab a drink, and get ready to enjoy my conversation with Dan Bennett, Storyteller Extraordinaire, Video King, the man behind the Antipreneur Movement. Listen in as he shares some of his insights, experiences, as well as shows us even his most vulnerable side. A side that keeps him forever top of mind with me when I hear the words, "Tell me your story." Enjoy.
I kind of feel like, I've been on Zoom for like 4.5 years or something. So I feel like everyone's catching up to me now. And that's nice because I've never been ahead of the curve on anything. So it's like, oh, welcome. Here's how you look and sound better.
Well, it's funny because I actually caught that message in one of your recent videos, and where you actually made that point. And I was thinking that myself, right? Because I was saying, Dan has been really advocating for going digital, making sure that, you just in case something like this would come up, that you'd be ready. And then all of a sudden it's like the pandemic must have meant something different to you, right?
Yeah, it's weird because I lost everything. So there's I call it the Great BandAid Rip. But it also set me in a new direction where I'm way more happy with what I'm doing now that I finally rebuilt it, because so much of the work I was doing as a agency, for lack of a better term, just wasn't fulfilling. So, part of starting over was like, well, I'm only going to do shit that makes me feel good. I'm tired of chasing money. And so that was a big part of it. And then, I've always been preaching obviously story and story development, but then video is more than just a commercial or your about me video or whatever. It can be ongoing communication with your audience. And most of the time that got misconstrued as just creating, digital marketing or social media content on the regular. And I know social's where a lot of the video goes, but that's never what I really meant. What I meant was you have an audience, big or small, speak to them. And if more people come along for the party, cool, but speak to them. And while you're speaking to them, learn to shoot your own great video and learn from someone like me, and then go off on your own like Carol has, So that was always the intention. Well, now everyone's not so focused on video has to be an end product, but video is daily communication. And oh shit, while I'm, interviewing someone, I guess I could record that and then make something out. And it's the stuff I've been saying for years. And I'm like, yeah, you can. That's right. So now I have, clients where all I get is their raw Zoom asset, and I chop it up and make stuff out of it and give it back or put it on YouTube or wherever it's going, and they pay me for it. And it's like, this is what I was talking about the whole time. So I do feel like I've been prepped for this in some way. The challenge over the last 6 months is how to find people who are ready to spend money, because everyone knows now, shit, we're remote now and I need to be on Zoom more, or I should probably look or sound better, but not everyone's ready to spend money, and not every company has been thinking along the way of, okay, everyone's remote, man, maybe we should buy them all a decent mic and a light so they look and sound good for all these remote calls, especially their salespeople and people that are pitching and stuff. So the challenge is, I'm still pretty much 100% word of mouth and referrals, which is great, but the challenge has been finding companies that are ready. And I found a couple on accident, and they're in that position. They got a budget, they're ready. They know that even, when the herd immunity is reached or whatever we're looking forward to happens, it's never going to be like it was. So we should probably, get used to some of these things. So we'll see. It's been an interesting journey for sure.
Well, I think that there were a number of people who got it because they realized that their business is a destination, to get to, and that the communication, needs to be fluid. Yeah. The storytelling needs to be fluid so that it it drives you through what you so beautifully presented early on about the customer journey, that cyclical approach, and then rinse and repeat. Yeah, a lot of people weren't getting that, right?
The fact that it's ongoing, right? The reason that big brands like Apple or Coke or whatever can stick in your mind is because they have the resources to get in front of you enough times. And for smaller businesses, I've been saying for years, like, you have an audience, it's not as big, and you don't have the money to go pump millions into reaching brand new people over and over and over 10 times, 20 times a day. But you can speak to your current audience on an ongoing basis and cultivate what your brand means to them, which means, like, instead of paying a video production company to come in and make expensive stuff, maybe shoot in-house and just have someone edit it, you know. And it always seems so foreign to so many people, and nowadays that's the first conversation I'm having with a potential new client is, how do we create video ongoing? And it's like, right, yeah. Yeah, well, I'll tell you how. So it's
Well,
been fun.
you also talked about like repurposing. Like when you do a lengthy video, you don't have to shove it down everybody's throat like right away. Like that, I see you taking out sound bites, you know, and I got that from you. You know, that's where I learned that. It's like, take out the sound bite, repurpose it. It means more when you can consume it better, right?
Yeah, yeah, and there's some like standard lengthy content, you know, like if you film your podcast or if you're interviewing someone or whatever, but you can also just talk about what you know for 10 minutes. I've been having clients lately like get on Zoom by themselves and record it and just talk for 10 minutes about what you love. Let's see what comes out of that, you know, and even that has had people discovering like, oh, so it's almost like if I was going to do a course and charge for it and put all that time in, it's like a micro version of that I can give away for free to start testing the waters. And I just nod and say, yes, that's a great way to do it. And especially if I've worked with them to get, you know, a decent light, a decent mic, that's it, nothing crazy. Now it's consumable. And, you know, maybe if you just run your mouth for 10 minutes, 2.5 minutes is really good. And that turns into 3 little pieces of content. And, you know, it's authentic too, because you were just going on about what you know instead of trying to create some specific video to do a certain job. We need those things, but that's, in my opinion, that's a minority of the content you should put out. So
Right.
yeah, I'm always trying to get people to have a little bit more fun and just share their knowledge and speak to the crowd that they already have.
Well, there's a fine line between pitching and educating.
Right. Yeah.
But they are distinctly two different things, right? And you're talking to that right now. And I think many clients don't get the idea of like, oh, I should break down the components of my educational program. This, which is also something that I saw you do really, really well, where it's like, let's not try to force feed this. Let's give them a taste of what it's like to work with me, you know, and take it from there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oftentimes I think about any chunk of knowledge someone has as like a chapter in a book. It's nice to have the book, and when you're ready, write the book. But in the meantime, you know, just share one of the chapters, because it's any good piece of, you know, maybe a television series might be a little tougher, but any good piece of consumable content that's entertaining, you can kind of come in anywhere and be entertained. You might want to go to the beginning so you know all the inside jokes. You might not want to watch the last episode because it might ruin it, but you can kind of come in anywhere else and be like, oh, this is kind of cool. I'm going to go back and plug in. And I view almost everything I do as educational. So it's like bite-sized pieces. Yeah, no one gets their college degree in 6 months. So why are we trying to force it, like you said?
Yeah, no, exactly. One of the things that I saw that you were particularly good at was like building a story, but almost making it look like a trailer to a bigger movie, which is, I mean, that's a very specialized talent. Not everybody can, you know, sense the top, the bottom, the middle, like where do I put the juicy parts, those kinds of things. You've obviously done really well in that space.
Yeah, I definitely have an advantage because I've literally edited movie trailers in my career, so I know kind of what works, what's given away too much, you know, some of the tricks around enticement and interrupting pattern and all those fun things. But you know, I think if your stuff is good, you know, that's the one part I can't control for any client, but if your stuff is good, then if you've already made 12 pieces of content and I see piece 13 and it really fulfills a need and I relate to you somehow, And at the end of that video, you're like, hey, if you like this one, here's a whole playlist of things where I talk about a similar subject. I'll watch it. You know, it's a teaser, it's a trailer in its own right. You know, so you can't always think about the body of work. When you can, it's helpful. But if you can't, you know, what are you feeling that day? Talk about something you know, talk about something you like, talk about the weather and how it's affecting your work that day. People relate to people, and it's just kind of cool, even though there's some negatives. There's some Zoom burnout, and there's some people getting fatigue, and, you know, we're not getting as much sun as we used to and all those things. It's forced some people into communicating better because they have to do it. And you can't really run away from this. You know, it's like there's a face and a brain, and here's a face and a brain, and we have to interface. So I think people are getting a little bit more used to doing it through video, and, you know, that just opens up a door to be able to create content on your own as well. So I like it. I like it. I've edited some pieces for some clients lately where all they were doing was recording their discussion with a colleague. It was not made to be a piece of content, but they got done. They're like, wow, there's some nuggets in there. Will you pull them out and polish them and give them back? It's like, yeah, that's a great way to use it. And it's all been, you know, this sort of Zoom type thing. There's a million softwares, but this sort of environment.
Yeah. Well, thought leadership happens all around us, right? I mean, and sometimes, as you say, it happens sometimes by accident. You might just be having an incredible conversation with somebody, and find that, you know, you elevated a piece of important information about your business. And I think people are not necessarily in tune with it, right? I think they miss it occasionally. I think they get caught up in the work that they're doing, right?
Yeah, so much of what I do is really just implementing top of mind into my clients. Yeah, you know, 1 Minute Media might bring in a member who learns to shoot great video, and I help them get the right gear. And there's some technical that comes along with working with someone like me, but most of the time it's just, you know, getting something to be top of mind. And something I found funny is how hard it was, especially when one Minute Media was just in real life only and it wasn't digital, how hard it was to get people to invest in some cheap lights and a decent microphone, and they could even use their cell phone, but we need a couple of tools. And it was never the money. It was like, I don't see the need or the value. And then as soon as people got thrown onto Zoom, oh, I look like crap. Can you help me? It's like, you looked like crap before, but you didn't want to hear about it. Now it's like, oh, I'm in this digital room with 6 other of my, you know, coworkers. Man, I better look better. Which I'm glad, because we all should look and sound a little better. I love that you have earbuds in. I mean, that's a great starting point for anyone doing anything on Zoom, is like, just get that little microphone and make sure we're not bleeding back through your microphone because you're using speakers. Something simple like that. I would have a hard time getting people to do, making their own video, but now that they're on video as part of their work, it's like, help me, please. And I love it because everyone's looking and sounding better that I'm working with, but it's funny. And it's just top of mind. All of a sudden it's top of mind.
The world did catch up with you.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But there's still people who are, they're nervous. Like, they're still nervous of getting themselves in front of the camera and putting them, even though they have to, that's the only way they get to meet their people. They're still nervous, right? Yeah,
this is super important to me. So I love that you brought this up. And it's funny because I've been on 4 or 5 podcasts in the last couple of weeks, and this has gotten brought up every time. And again, it's because it's top of mind because so many of us are on Zoom. So I love that, you know, some positives can come from this pandemic stuff. And it is super important to me. So I've been really doing a lot of research. I've never been the kind of guy that says, you know, just get on camera, you'll be fine, just do it. I hate that. I toured in a band. I was on stages everywhere. I spoke at conferences all over the US, and I put out hundreds of pieces of content, and I still had a journey from behind the camera to in front of it. It wasn't as difficult for me as it is for a lot of people because I've performed, but I'm an introvert at heart, and there was still a process. And there was about 3 months of putting out content every single day before the lens became an audience. It just kind of shifted for me, and I'm like, oh, that's not glass and electronics and metal. That's potentially one person who I might help. Wow. And now anytime I look at a lens, it's just an audience. It's not a camera anymore. And everyone's journey there is different and takes different amounts of time. But I'm really, really focused on this topic you brought up, which is the hesitancy to be on camera. And I'm trying to find, I got a couple ideas, nothing's in place yet, but I'm trying to find ways to interact with people more and more and more on that level. I want to create online somewhere for free some kind of community that can be like a sandbox where we can all bring our rough videos and ideas and get critique, but in a loving way, you know, so some kind of safe place for video development and getting your reps in. I've also started having conversations in a different way with people that I talk to. What ended up happening was that someone who is a 1 Minute Media alumni, we were having a general conversation, and she mentioned how hard it was in the beginning to get in front of the camera. And in the beginning, she never told me that. I was completely unaware. I was like, wow, I never knew you struggled at all. You dove right in, you got it done, you know. And she's like, oh yeah, it was a process, you know, and with your help and guidance and some of my own bravery, you know, like I did it. And I was like, wow, I didn't know. I knew people dealt with this, but I didn't know it was like a vast majority of people. So in that conversation, what I realized accidentally, looking back at this older conversation, was that I had accidentally found out one of the ways I had helped her get on camera easier. And she is a high-end coach for executives and all this cool stuff, but she's also a professional photographer. She shoots currently as a hobby, but she used to do it for a living. And when I found that out early on, I was like, hey, you know what's really cool is you already know about framing and exposure and all that stuff. So we don't even got to worry about that. We just got to get some equipment in your hands. And then I look back on another conversation with a copywriter who is a client. And I was like, oh, you know, one of the hardest things for video people getting started is writing a good outline or bullet point or script. You got that down already, so we don't got to worry about that. Another client of mine is an actress. She's in television and commercials and all that stuff out of New York. Doing performance coaching for executives and stuff nowadays. And I was like, oh, you already know about performance. We ain't got to worry about that. Let's just get the right gear and get you lit, you know, and get going. So I started accidentally finding these superpowers that people already had and then helping them leverage those to get on camera just a little bit easier. So that's kind of my focus now, is like creating a safe space where people can test things, and then also putting out more content around the idea of how do you get on camera. And not me telling people how to get on camera, but sharing stories from a whole bunch of people and how they got on camera for the first time, to see if maybe somewhere in those stories someone can relate and feel a little bit better about their first time, you know, or getting over that hurdle. So I'm paying a lot of attention to that exact thing right now.
That's amazing, actually. I think even I felt better listening to you explain that. Like, there's just something very soothing about knowing that someone else, you know, had difficulty getting on the dance floor as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, and you know, like something I think of when I think of you, good-looking guy, always well-dressed, knows how to express himself artistically and amplifies others. Those are all things where it's like, well, you look good on camera, you got great background, I see some art back there, you're bringing some of your world into the shot, and you love amplifying other people, so you're hosting and you're asking me questions and giving me a platform and a space to, you know, share what I do. So you're leveraging your superpowers right now to be on camera. It's not just the shot itself, it's everything else that goes into it. So it's cool.
That's brilliant. You sounded a little bit like a psychiatrist there for a minute.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we could all do with a fix every now and again, right? You know,
100%, 100%. Yeah, because I go through the same thing. Obviously, over the years, it's gotten much easier, but there's still days where, you know, this is kind of my like Zoom quick video podcast angle. And then when I shoot YouTube videos, I move the camera over and use my desk as kind of a background. And even just that shift, you know, I look a little bit different. I'll throw a little bit of makeup under my eyes, you know, just to kind of even things out so I don't look sweaty. And I'll take a little bit more care because it's just a different look. And there's a slight amount of hesitancy because a lot of my YouTube stuff is kind of educational. So I want to make sure I get everything right so I don't mislead someone or say something wrong that costs them an hour of their time because, you know, I didn't do my research. So even then, you know, as many times as I've done this, which is over 1,000 now, is creating a piece of video content, I still like got my process, you know, I got to go through it.
I love how fastidious you are about your process. That's the other thing. And there's no, I find there's there's no shortcuts to
No.
where you're going, right?
Now, everyone has a ceiling, including the best. And I talk to clients about that all the time too. I can only at this point in time edit as fast as my computer will allow. So I got a very high end machine. I have, over a decade of editing experience at this point. Most of the time I'm editing something that I helped direct, so I already kind of know what the edit needs to be. And I still have a ceiling. I can only edit so fast. So how can I get faster after that? Make sure my folder structure is all intact. Make sure every file is where it needs to be and named appropriately before I start. Make sure that my bullet points for my YouTube video are right up there where I can get to them quick if I forget where I'm at. That's the only way you can pick up speed once you're good at something. So I'm always thinking about someone starting from scratch and how can I help them pass those first parts where you can get quicker and actually feel how you get quicker. But I always warn them as well. There's a ceiling. We can only get so fast. So make sure your process is really good. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sure, much like yourself, I have those conversations with clients about patience.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you've got to put in the 10,000 hours. It's not going to happen tomorrow. Even the best little video clips, I mean, it might get you some views, but it won't necessarily, make the cash register ring, right?
Yeah. Everything is Legos, man. Everything is Legos. And I'm someone who's had some stuff go viral and it didn't always change into money, like you said. So like you have to think long term. All the cliches, they're just all true. Good foundation, build relationships with your clients, not just transactions. All the things, we say them for a reason. It's because they're true, and it takes a minute to get that going. But that's a great part about it, is if you build it well and kind of get that flywheel going, like we've heard so many times, it does work. You can keep momentum and maybe even take a break now and then.
Now, what is the condition of Michigan at this time? Are you able to get out to clients these days or not?
I haven't done much physical production. Most spaces are open with social distancing, and the things I've been doing are like interview, talking head, kind of micro documentary style shooting for the content that they want. So it's really easy to come in, set up, keep 6+ feet from everyone, and still do what I was doing before, because it was never really in close proximity anyway. But I would say safely 90+% of my work over the last 8 months has all been here in this office, and I have clients all over the world. But a lot of it's been on the digital and distribution side, and like doing that final edit and polishing and giving it a professional look and helping people create the assets up front. It's opening up a little. I think I just saw actually a couple days ago where outdoor events under a certain size can be mask free. So slowly but surely. But there's not a ton of opportunity in this state. So, I've been thinking a lot about moving over the last couple of years. We're actually visiting Texas at the end of this month just to poke around a little bit. And I got some decent networking down there, and they're a lot more lax down there than here, which I don't know if that's good or bad. But I'm sure it'll be a little bit of a shock for us, because pretty much everywhere you go right now, you still see people in masks. And in Texas, I hear it's a little different. So we'll see. But it's been pretty slow going as far as opening up, which doesn't hurt my feelings. It's forced me to work in a new way as well. And I've just gotten better at my craft because I've had to spend more time on the digital side.
Yeah. I'll be frank with you. This week in particular, I'm not sure why. Maybe it's a change in the moon or something, but I've been talking to a lot of people that are stressed. Like that are like really, had to walk them off the ledge a little bit, right? Yeah. And it gets you thinking about, what is for us in the future. Where do you see your business going? Do you have a little crystal ball, or?
I don't think anything will ever be the way it was before, and I think there's going to be a time period in the next 2 or 3 years where people come to that realization who don't have that realization right now. I think there's a good chunk of people that think once A, B, and C happens, it'll be the way it was before, and there's just no chance. There's no way that giant companies like Apple and Amazon and Zoom and Grubhub and all these places have made this kind of shift and are going to shift back because they're seeing higher profit margins, they're seeing higher revenue, and people are getting used to what used to be fantasy. One day you'll just put on a VR headset and everything will come to you. Now it's happening, and I don't think that everyone's just going to go back to normal because they've been told that it can. So my crystal ball is that companies are out of necessity learning how to navigate remotely right now, but it's going to be part of the infrastructure, and it's never going to change fully back because we don't need 50 people in an office to do a job anymore. You might need 4 or 5 managers, stakeholders, higher, positions that make decisions. But the rest of us should already be at home, spending more time with our family and maybe being more involved in our kids' education and working with our clients in a way that, the old adage, like that meeting could have been an email. Maybe it should now. And maybe that email that doesn't need to be could be a 5-minute Zoom call. And maybe that 5-minute Zoom call that doesn't need to be could be a quick text or a Slack message. So I think businesses are seeing the benefits so much so that there's no way to shift the tides after this. So that's kind of how I feel. If everything did go back to normal and I'm wrong, I wouldn't be mad. But I've been in the Zoom game and I've been kind of siloed entrepreneur digital guy for so long that none of this is new to me. So it's just business as usual. And I think now that enough people have come to the dark side, if you will, I don't think it's ever going to be the same.
Actually, I'm hoping that more people will catch up with us, right? Because I think that there's still some big business out there that's still working kind of paper, working kind of transactional, don't quite understand, the way things are going to be, and maybe don't trust people like you or me. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I haven't ran into any, but I know that's only because, all my work is referral and word of mouth and top of funnel access to my content, right? So no one's going to talk to me who doesn't want to because of how they found me. I'm sure they're out there for sure. But, I do kind of, one of the more optimistic thoughts I've had recently is imagine if our journeys outdoors were so much more purposeful now. So we're not commuting to work every day. We don't have to go to the grocery store because they'll just bring it to us. We can have our dinner brought or, our raw essentials that we cook ourselves and all that stuff. So then maybe we could spend our time going out like we have for the last year and a half, very purposefully. We're going to go to the Detroit Zoo for the winter lights, walk around, have a good time in a hot chocolate and come home. And now it's an event and it was a reason to get out of the house. So I do think it'd be cool if things open back up, but there's not so much traffic trying to do business, and more of the ideas and traffic is to like hang out with each other or grab a drink or have a good time or go through a park and maybe grab a kayak. I'm hoping some people, take advantage of the fact that there won't be as much traffic, whether it's literal or figurative, and maybe take more advantage. Because I know when I'm outside now, I breathe deeper. I'll close my eyes and just stare up at the sun for 5 minutes. Like I do all, and I'm not a huge like outdoor person or like part of the wild or anything like that. But I find myself behaving in a different way now because it's like, oh, we're outside. Hold on, I need to get my vitamin D. So I hope that maybe being social and being outside means a little bit more to people as we move forward.
I like where you were going with that, and that almost seems like a futuristic world, right? In a sense, even though it isn't, it's common, but
a little utopian, a little dystopian. Yeah.
Totally. But I like the idea of actually going out purposeful, because I've even just even the other day, I went for an eye exam and I got dressed up.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I'm going to drive my car in about 3 months. My wife says to me, like, what are you doing? And I said, we were just going for an eye exam. I said, I haven't been out in ages.
Yeah.
This is an event.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And even if that shift is, it's big right now and then we get used to some stuff again, but part of it stays. I think it would be cool because I've always been the kind of guy that loves a good, game night with friends that's maybe a little shenanigans, but not too bad, you know. And I've always enjoyed those things. And same with me. I've probably been out a dozen times in the last year and a half. So like I'm right there with you. Just breathe it in and stare at the sun a little. And...
You know, just as you mentioned about creating events, I mean, I was thinking how unique if we rolled that back into our business and created our daily efforts in our business as an event. I mean, how brilliant would that, and actually that would involve video, that would involve some experiential, you know, getting together.
Yeah, that's a cool thought. I've noticed that there's been some companies I've run across, small and nimble companies, who have kind of accidentally gotten into the world that could be easily related to, say, like webinars or live Q&As and stuff like that. Stuff that a lot of us were already doing, but the average just 9-to-5 corporation wasn't necessarily doing. And some of these have been clients where I'm meeting with the board or meeting with a group of leaders about the thing we might do together. And it's been cool to see like everyone's brought in and it's kind of the, you know, how's your dog? And I see the baby in the background, and there's just less of this like ticking all the boxes and more like we're all going through this, but we could still get something done at the same time. So a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more like event kind of focus, as opposed to give us your pitch and we'll call you in 2 days and all that, which is great for me because I'm a storyteller. So like I just come in and do my thing, and it's not out of place as much as it used to be. But I like it. The 1 Minute Media group on Facebook, which is a private group for the members, I go Q&A live every Monday night just to share what I've learned that week and see if anyone has questions about video and stuff. And even that in a small group with just a little bit of access to me has been really cool, helpful for them, keeps me sharp. It's been this kind of event-based thing that I look forward to and get excited about. So I think, you know, companies could definitely benefit from doing that. And if you have to put on a Zoom event or a Zoom meeting, you're in a headspace you weren't before. So got to make sure everyone's okay. Is the chat open or not? Is someone monitoring while whatever the thing is? It's making people think more event-based, I think. So it's kind of cool to think of, well, you've learned these skills anyway. Why not host an event? You know, it would be cool.
I see people struggling with live a lot. Yeah. I mean, they don't know. They keep asking the audience for the cues, right? Can you hear me? Am I on? Is my screen on? I'm thinking, what is that?
It's funny, man. Like, so there was always some dose for the last 10 years of, it's just video, and then they get a taste of it and they're like, whoa, this is hard. You know, now those doses, even though they're smaller, are happening to people all the time. Go live. Cool. I hit the live button. Oh, wow, there's more to it than that. Oh, things are happening. Oh, I wasn't prepared. Oh, you know. So like, even though it's in a private group and it's a small group, and I could just sit there and pick my nose if no one asks any questions, I still plan a topic that I can riff on just in case there's no questions. And I tell everyone at the beginning, hey, if you guys show up and you got questions, throw them in. You know it's a live Q&A, but if I don't get any questions, I'm going to keep talking about the story circle and how story impacts business or whatever. And that keeps me, like I said, on my toes, but it's also from years of production and knowing how to do stuff. So it's interesting to watch people like, I got this. And then I'm in conversations with their leadership, like, please help us do this better because this is not easy. And it's like, yeah, you know, it's not rocket science, but it is a learning curve.
Yeah, no. And you still want to put your best foot forward. I mean, regardless of everybody being in the same state, if you want to be taken seriously, you should probably act that way, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like your tiny laptop on the desk that's in your lap shooting up your nose, as smart as you are, doesn't make me like feel great about our interaction on that particular day, you know? And some of it's that simple. You know, I've had clients where I'm like, well, we haven't got gear into your hands yet, but like, could you put a couple fat books underneath your computer, please? All right, cool. Great starting point. You know, you don't need to know why, but if your camera was at eye level, that would be great. And we'll start there, you know, because people have no idea. And man, I've been in those meetings with people who you would think know better. And you're just looking around the Zoom like, man, you guys need help. It's a good thing I'm here. This is terrible. Because if you were on with a vendor or a potential client and you look like this, maybe, you know. And it's not even always, you know, what you're wearing or how you present yourself or if you're awkward on camera. It's just the technical of video. It's just the framing and the lighting and the, you know, shirtless lawnmower man outside of your window. Like, those are the things that most of the time I'm sitting there like, oh, you didn't think this through at all.
Photobombed by the shirtless mower.
I said that because it just happened to me last week.
Oh my God.
Yep, shirtless lawnmower man in her back in the window behind her. And I was just like, huh.
Okay.
All right. I mean,
very distracting. I know we're talking about something serious, but I've just been distracted.
I'm like, I guess blinds aren't for everyone. I don't know.
How are you feeling? About you? I mean, where's your head?
Yeah, I feel good. I keep telling people, you know, out of the woods. When I lost everything last year, I literally went into the woods.
I saw that.
And, you know, no agenda. I took a big whiteboard. I took some documentaries loaded on an old iPad, and I took a book, and that was it. And coming out, I had given myself the whole month of September last year to just have every wild idea. Don't try and start something over right away. This is all while I'm selling stuff out of my storage to pay for groceries because I don't know where money's coming from at this point, you know, but I was like, I got to stick to it. And as I went back through some of the notes and some of the things I discovered in that trailer out in the Michigan wilderness, I started to get some clarity. And then October is when I started, okay, I know I want to shift from services for clients more to products for customers, but I know I'm going to have to freelance in the meantime to pay bills. So what do I want that to look like? And essentially I came to a point to where I think this is something Tim Ferriss said about in getting out of being a VC venture capitalist. He was like, you know, if it's not a hell yeah, I'm not doing it. And once I realized that, I made some shifts in myself and my business. And I kind of stole that. And I'm like, I want to go there where it's like, if I'm not excited or the company I'm working with isn't doing something cool, or it's not pro bono work because it's a mission I believe in or something, I'm just not doing it. And I had 2 in that month of September where I said, I'm not doing work. I'm only focusing on the future. I'm having every wild idea. And, you know, one of them was the campground I stayed at that a friend of mine accidentally bought while I was in the woods. One of my wild ideas was sell everything and help him redo this campground and be a campground manager. Probably not going to do that, but it was me allowing myself to have every crazy idea. And as I started to gain focus coming out of that, storytelling and video it's where I've been. Storytelling's at the heart of everything I do, and video is usually the vehicle that takes that story where it's going. So I felt really good about the fact that even though I'm doing some services for clients right now, it's paying better than it ever has because I up my prices and I'm like, I'm not doing this crap for cheap anymore. And I'm working with people I really believe in. They believe in me. And then I'm also taking the extra time to build these products that, you know, create that external revenue where I don't have to be there for it to happen. So I feel good. I'm heading in a direction that feels good, and the clients I have feel good. Bigger and better is still on my mind, you know, so I'm trying to position myself to do what I'm doing, but less of the technical, less of the editing, less of the designing, and more of the entrepreneurial and vision and strategy portions with companies that got bigger budgets and can afford that, you know. So I feel good. I feel like I started over. I'm doing it my way, and I know where I'm going. So I don't feel like what I'm doing right now is forever, and I don't feel stuck in what I'm doing. And part of that vision is it's time for people to know who I am. And part of that's purposefully being on podcasts like yours, putting myself out there in new ways and finding comfort in being, you know, I'm Dan Bennett, the Antipreneur, and this is a brand I'm going to build. And why I shied away from that for the last 4 years, I don't know, but I'm not anymore, you know, so it's cool.
I always saw you as that. I mean, I remember our first meeting and I thought, this guy is he's so radical. He's so refreshing. You were so like, that's how I saw you. And I'll be frank with you. I was a little bit in awe of how gentle and how purposeful you were and how much fun you were having at that time. And I thought, that is such a healthy space. I kept saying to myself,
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
a good mindset, right?
I agree. And I can see that time like it was yesterday. And I also remember how I felt. And that is similar to how I feel now. And it's a mix of things, you know. It's doing it my way. It's knowing I'm good enough. I've been doing this long enough now that I don't need to convince anyone. So let's just work with people who already want to work with me. It's doing YouTube on purpose. I've been on YouTube for 11 years, and it wasn't until losing everything and finding myself again where I was like, why have I not done this on purpose? You know. And I'm like, all right, so I'm a 40-year-old YouTuber. That's part of the journey. Let's go. You know, so making content on purpose now, how fun that's been. I'm proving things to other people that I've always known are true, but now I can prove it and they believe me. I've gotten sponsorships with my small YouTube channel. So that's proof that if you do a good job and you know what you're talking about, you can still make money. You know, my YouTube's part of my top of funnel, which is super fun because then no one's surprised when they bump into maybe 1 Minute Media and they see a price tag because they know what I'm all about. I got a bunch of valuable stuff for free, and then I got some even more valuable stuff that costs money. And no one's like, oh, bait and switch, or you talk about this, but you're really about that. And me kind of, you know, like coming to terms with that it's okay to be the antipreneur and to put everything under that umbrella and just have fun with it. And the trade-off is, you know, die broke but fulfilled, you know. And hopefully it's, you know, I eliminate the broke part all the way, but the fulfilled part is where I have a little bit more control, so I like it.
Well, I like that you don't come to, come to the market with the silver bullets and the magic pills and the 5 ways to do this and the 7 ways. You know that I know that you think like me and that I totally hate that approach. That's for sure.
Yeah, I love the, like, there are no blueprints little slogan too that I throw around, because that's generally what that is follow my blueprint and you'll have a Lamborghini too or whatever. And it's like, you know, unless you're a home builder, I don't want to hear about your blueprint. And unless it's my home, I really don't want to hear about it. And so, you know, my balance to that is there are business, you know, foundational business principles that matter, and that's never going to change. Value, keeping your word, timelines, customer relationship, that stuff's never going to change. But what you build on your foundation is none of my business. I have no right to tell you if you do these 10 things, you can have what I have, because I don't know what you're going to build on your foundation. That's not my business. Now, if I help you in the building, cool, because it's your blueprint. I'm just helping. But for anyone to say they have one for you, man, that's a tough one for me. So that's what I'm out here doing. Is like, hey, let me show you how to tell a better story, and maybe use video to get it where it needs to go, because you already got something great to say, and I don't need to create that for you. I just need to help you cultivate it and get it where it's going.
One of the most poignant and kind of inspirational moments that I remember about you was that live session that you did at the Ferris wheel, where you made that personal quote that I can't ever forget. It's embedded in my mind about no matter how long you live in the world, you'll never know what it's like to live a day in my shoes. And of course, our dear friend Ashley Peacock was with you and reiterated that, and it even made it sound more powerful. But what a beautiful moment that was. And
yeah, and that's fun for me for 2 reasons. One, I watch it like I'm not in it. I don't see me when I see that, which is fun, you know, because I'm not like, oh, I said that and I'm special. And like we both know, Ashley really like took what I said and made it better. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't even really realize I said that. But it's cool because I can watch it just like everyone else does at this point, and I'm inspired by it. I think about it every day too. And it's not because I said it, it's because it is captured and I can hear it. The second part is I've really been on this kick over the last 6 months of using content, especially video content, as like ammunition. And I'm sure there's a less violent metaphor I could find, but I've been thinking of like an old Western belt with all the bullets in it. And at any point in time, if you've made content about what you're an expert in, little pieces, big pieces, full talks, doesn't matter, and someone's like, you know what, Dan, like I want to make video and but like I have a lawn care company. Anyone can cut grass. Like it's not special. Like I don't have a story. I just grab a bullet, put it in the gun, boom. Yeah, you do. Check this link out. And that particular little 45-second clip has garnered more like DMs, conversation starters. Wow, thank you for sharing that. And none of it's because I'm in it. It's just because I brought to light this idea that, no one's lived a day of your shoes, which means your story is worth telling because no one else can tell it. And who's going to, if you don't? All the cliche things that you hear from great storytellers, they're just true. It's just the way it is.
And even a simple thing like mowing lawns, there's a story of how you got to that place that is so different from the next guy who's going to do the same thing, right?
Yeah. And it's always one layer deeper. I have talks with potential clients, sales calls, and clients all the time where, the general conversation is, okay, lawnmower guy, cutting lawns is not what you do though. And, a good portion of the time it's like, wait, what? Yeah, cutting lawns is not what you do. Landscaping is not what you do. What do you mean? Well, without talking to you, I can't tell you what you do yet, but I bet it's something more along the lines of cutting, Miss O'Grady's lawn for free because she's 85 and you love that you grew up with her and she used to be your teacher. And every time you're out cutting lawns for your business, you cut hers too. And she loves that. And every once in a while, there's some lemonade or cookies out there. Hiring people who are disadvantaged and have a hard time finding work elsewhere. That's part of your agenda. That's cool. You never put that in your commercials, but it's part of what you do, and that's what matters. At the end of the day, cutting lawns is not what gets you up, but something does. And what is that? And that's what I'm after all the time is like, why do you actually do what you do? And I tell you, I've even worked with companies that just make a widget and there's still something there. I just did some work last 2 weeks ago with an auto repair company that's been in a family for, 40 years. And they had customers that told stories that sound nothing like business. We've been to each other's kids' graduations. I always come to the company cookout, even though I don't work here. Like all these, and it all centered around family and trust. Had nothing to do with cars. Yes, they do a great job. Yes, they give lifetime warranty on parts. That's secondary, And as soon as people, even though some people think it's fluffy, when I run into them at first, as soon as they think about it a little bit, it's like, oh wow, this is how we all interact with each other always. It's relationships. It's not, just commodities exchanging hands or whatever. So yeah, I went on a tangent, but that's what all that is like no one else is living your life. So you might as well talk about it.
100%. Wow. And you really colored that. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed you taking me on that little tiny journey there. And
Yeah,
I know that our listeners will too.
I hope so. And I got one more little part of that just popped in my head. Another thing I talk about all the time with clients is that the human that bumps into any of your content needs to be able to relate to you. And if it's just a shiny car and shiny parts and bells and whistles and features and benefits, it can't always relate to you. They can maybe see something like, oh, my pocketbook will be a little fuller if I buy from the cheaper guy. But it's the humanity, and it's uncomfortable to be human most of the time. And I know that's what keeps people from doing it in their advertising, in their marketing, in their day-to-day lives on Zoom. And if you can, it's another buzzword, and I'm sorry, everyone, but if you can just be a little bit more vulnerable, if you can just remember that great story works because of conflict. And if you show a little dirty laundry, a little dirt under the rug, if you self-deprecate a little, if you point out the problem before anyone else can, now the viewer, the audience wants to root for you. They want you to win because we're humans and that's how we behave. So that's what I'm after.
Wow. I couldn't have said that better myself. I almost wished I had. It was that good, actually. Yeah, because reality is that once you've actually brought your dirty laundry to the front, and there's nothing else to see in a sense, right? And it's like, this is my worst scenario. Like, you can't test me on anything now. I've actually passed.
Yeah. My favorite representation of that is a great comedian who will self-deprecate up front and get it out of the way so you can't make fun of their age or their bald head or their weight because they did it already. And you're like disarmed by it. I love that. Love it.
and they just enjoy them. They now just enjoy the moment, right?
Yeah. We've related as humans. The walls are down a little bit. Let's go. Yeah.
I love it. Now, tell me that wasn't just the best thing you've listened to this year. Dan is a total rock star, and yet so humble. I'm so pleased that you joined us today to hear his story. Thanks for listening.